sentence was read, while he stood directly in front of me. He did not look at me once. Wind cut through the execution ground from the north. My hackles dragged across the stone. The sound they made was faint, like something small scratching at a door that would never open.
High Elder Cassian's voice fell from above, unhurried and heavy.
Elara Ashfield. Contamination of pure blood. The evidence is absolute and incontrovertible. By the sacred laws of the Silverfling Accord, you are sentenced to death by the blood blade.
Someone in the crowd spit. The sound landed closer than I expected. Simus stood 3 paces away. The silver enforcer's badge on his collar was polished so bright it caught the grey light. His fingers tapped the hilt of the execution blade twice. I knew that habit. It meant he was thinking about something. I used to watch his hands during council sessions, back when I was still allowed in the gallery. Back when I was still allowed anywhere.
Prisoner Elara, he spoke. His voice was exactly the same as it had been at the council hearing 7 years ago.
Flat. No temperature anyone could name.
Do you have final words?
I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I closed it. Looked down at the stone. 3 years ago, a family banquet before everything ended. He had poured me a glass of wine. His fingers brushed the back of my hand as he passed it to me. I pulled away too fast. My ears went warm. He had been looking across the hall at something else. I was sure he did not remember. I was sure of nothing anymore. The night before the execution, a guard passed a bowl of water through the bars. It was murky. I stared at the surface. Drank it. The silver blade pressed against my heart. His hand did not shake. The sting of the blade breaking skin never came. What came first was the smell of blood. Sharp, metallic. Wrong. Simus pulled the blade back, not from my chest, Rom. I watched a deep execution note across his flesh. Blood welled up and ran down his wrist in a thick line.
Silas Thorne! What is the meaning of this? What are you doing?
He did not answer. His hand clamped around the back of my neck. The force of it made my teeth clack together. I thought the bones might snap. He pulled me forward and my lips hit the open wound in his palm. Blood flooded my throat. Hot, corporeal, alive.
By blood and by bond.
Each word was ground out like it cost him something he had not agreed to pay.
I, Silmus of the Blood Oath, claim this condemned as my fated mate. Her crime is now my crime. Her sentence is now mine to carry.
The light of the old blood red exploded upward from my feet. Lyra silver, and cold. I heard the guards holding her cold as his eyes. Boots grinding against gravel. Brother! Fabric straining. Her shout was swallowed down by the silence of the crowd.
Execute.
Then I heard it. His voice, so low only I could catch it. Not meant for me, meant for himself. Like a breath that slipped out by accident before he could stop it.
Why you?
When I opened them again, I had turned something off behind them, quietly, like blowing out a candle no one was watching anyway. The 3rd day after the blood bond, the stone room in Frostorn Keep had no window. There was a bed with a thin mattress, a wooden table pushed against the wall, a cold light lamp on the ceiling that never went dark. The door was locked from the outside. I had checked twice. The first time because I needed to know. The second time because I had already forgotten the answer. Lyra came in carrying her medical case. She stood at the door for a long moment and watched me. I sat at the table and did not look up. She crossed the room and set the case on the table, opened it, took out several small vials of salve. The glass bottoms tapped against the wood, soft and careful, like she was afraid of making too much noise. Your wrist. I held out my arm. She pushed my sleeve up to the elbow. The bond mark. The bond mark was a faint red line that ran from the inside of my wrist all the way to just below the joint. It looked like a scar that had not finished healing, like something that could still be opened. She began applying the salve. Her fingertips were cool. Her touch was light and precise. She worked in silence for a while. She stopped. Her fingers paused on my skin. He is not what you think he is. I mean that. I do not fully understand him myself, but the blood bond, it was not supposed to happen like that. It was not supposed to happen at all. He did not plan this. Does he know you came here? Her hand paused for half a second, longer this time. No.
She finished applying the salve. She pulled my sleeve back down over the mark
And began packing up the vials. When she reached the door, she stopped with her hand on the frame. She did not turn around. I did not come here for him, she said. The door closed from the outside. The lock clicked into place. I looked down at my wrist. The bond mark was pale red, almost pink under the cold light. I touched it with one finger. It was warm, warmer than the rest of my skin, like something still alive pressed just beneath the surface, waiting. I pulled my sleeve down, covered it completely. The cold light lamp hummed overhead. There was no other sound. I placed my hand flat on the table and slowly curled my fingers inward, making a loose fist. I did not tighten it. The bond mark flared hot against my wrist. I was sitting at the table in the stone room. Midday, or what I guessed was midday. The cold light never changed. I had no way to mark time except the meals that appeared and the silence that stretched between them. Then the mark burned. I pressed my palm flat against the wood. The heat pulsed once, twice. And then something that was not mine pushed through. Anger. Hot and tight, and leashed so hard it vibrated. I knew it was not my anger before I understood how I knew. My anger had gone quiet 3 days ago. This was different. This was his. The bond had cracked open just enough to let it seep through. My fingers curled against the tabletop. I made them go flat again. Across the keep, in the high chamber of the Elder Council, Simus stood before Casian and the assembled seats of power.
The blood bond cannot be undone by a vote.
Simus's voice was even, the same even it always was, but the hand at his side was white-knuckled.
It is old law, older than this council, older than your seat, High Elder.
Old law can be interpreted. The bond was invoked under irregular circumstances. A condemned prisoner, an execution in progress. Surely even you can see how this appears.
Appears to
Cassian leaned forward. His robes pooled around him like grey water.
To the clans, to the pure-blood families who trust this council to protect the sanctity of our lineage. Silas, I have known you since you were a boy. I know you did not intend to bind yourself to a contaminated bloodline. Let us help you undo this mistake.
The chamber waited.
Mistake.
Simus repeated the word without inflection.
Yes.
He looked at Cassian. His silver eyes gave nothing back.
The blood bond is not a document you can amend.
He turned toward the chamber doors.
It is done, and it will stand.
The doors closed behind him. And for the first time in his decades of service, his hands were shaking. I felt the anger drain out of the bond, slowly, like water receding. What was left behind was something I had no name for. I pulled my sleeve down over the mark. The door opened. Not Lyra this time. A guard with a tray. He set it on the table and left without looking at me. I did not touch the food. I sat with my hand over the bond mark and waited for the next thing to break. Lyra came again 2 days later. Her medical case was in one hand. A leather folder was pressed flat against her chest with the other. She set the case down but did not open it. I found something. She placed the folder on the table. The leather was old and cracking at the edges. A faded clan sign was stamped into the corner. I did not recognize it. What is that? Archive fragments. She lowered her voice even though the door was locked and the walls were stone. She opened the folder. The pages inside were brittle. Some were torn at the edges. Some had scorch marks. But the script still legible. old, formal script, the kind used for official council records. These are from the year your grandmother died. I did not move. Lyra spread 3 pages across the table. Her finger landed on a line near the bottom of the first. Here. Disposition, dusted. The word sat in my chest like a stone. Dusted. I repeated.
Do you know what that means?
I knew. Every wolf knew. It was not execution. Execution left a body. Execution left a name in the records with a line through it. Dusting meant something else. Dusting meant you had never existed at all.
Who signed it?
Lyra turned to the last page. Her finger moved down the column of names. Then it stopped. Cassian Vane. The signature was unmistakable, sharp and precise, the handwriting of someone who had signed thousands of documents and never once hesitated. But there was another name beneath his. Scratched out. The ink was smeared, but not enough. I leaned closer. Silas Thorne. The room went very cold.
Did he know?
Lyra whispered. It was not a question. It was the beginning of something she was afraid to finish.
I did not answer.
I looked at his name. The ink was old. The scratch that tried to erase it was older. But it was his hand, his signature, on my grandmother's dusting order. That night I did not sleep. I sat at the table with the folder closed in front of me. The cold light hummed. The cold light hummed. The bond mark was cool against my wrist. I opened the folder once more and looked at his name. Then I closed it again. I did not cry. I had not cried since the execution ground. I was not going to start now. But something behind my ribs was cracking open very slowly. And I did not know what would be left when it finished. Silas stood in the doorway. He did not step inside. The cold light caught his silver eyes and made them look flat and unreadable.
You read the files.
It was not a question. Yes, silence. He was waiting for me to say more. I did not.
Lyra should not have brought them to you.
She did not make me read them. His jaw tightened, a small movement, almost invisible, but I was watching his hands now, the way I used to watch them during council sessions, the way I used to watch them pour wine. Your name was on the dusting order.
I know.
Then what do you want me to say? He did not answer. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. I could feel the bond mark pulsing against my skin. I did not know which of us was leaking into it.
I signed a detention order for questioning, not for dusting. I did not sign her death.
I looked at him. You signed the paper that put her in their hands. He did not flinch. But something behind his eyes shifted. A crack. Small. Maybe the first one he had ever allowed anyone to see.
I did not know.
He paused.
I did not know it was her. I did not know she was yours.
I waited. There was more. I could feel it pressing against the bond.
When I signed it, I was told it was a routine detention. A minor blood irregularity. Nothing more.
His hands were at his sides, not moving.
I did not ask questions. I signed. That is what I did. That is what I was.
The bond mark warmed. I let it. Are you finished? He looked at me for a long time. Then he turned and walked out. I sat down at the table. My hands were steady. I placed them flat on the wood and looked at the door he had closed behind him.
Okay.
No one heard it. He did not come back for 7 days. I counted. Not because I was waiting, because there was nothing else in the stone room to count.
except the meals that arrived and the footsteps that passed my door, cold, without stopping. On the 8th day, the door opened for a reason other than food.
The guard who stepped aside was not one I recognized. Younger, dark-haired. He wore the standard patrol uniform, but something about the way he held himself was wrong. Too loose. Too watchful.
You have 10 minutes.
He said. Not to me. To someone behind him. The guard walked away. The man who stepped into the doorway was tall and lean. His hair was the color of wet ash. His eyes were grey, almost colorless in the cold light. He wore no uniform, no house sigil, no indication of rank.
Alara Ashford. I am Cale Graysmurth.
I did not stand. You are not with the keep guard.
No.
He stepped inside and closed the door behind him.
I am not with anyone whose name you would recognize. I am with the Grey Valley. And I am here because you need to know what they erased.
Who is they?
Cassian Vane, the Elder Council.
Every pureblood house that has spent 200 years pretending your bloodline was a contamination.
He leaned against the wall, relaxed, too relaxed for a man standing in a locked room in Frostfall Keep.
Rather than what it actually is. Your grandmother was not executed for impurity. She was dusted because she was pregnant.
The word hit the air and stayed there.
You are lying.
He crossed his arms.
I do not need to lie. The truth is worse.
Because execution leaves a record. A line through a name. Dusting erases everything. And he needed her erased. Because she had done something no pureblood elder could allow.
What?
She had a child. A healthy child. A girl. That girl grew up in hiding. Changed her name. And eventually gave birth to you. His grey eyes held mine without blinking. Moon-marked blood is matrilineal. It passes from mother to daughter. Always. And Cassian has spent 200 years telling the clans that moon-marked blood is sterile. That it cannot reproduce. That it is a dead end of evolution. That must be killed for the health of the pack. I felt the bond mark pulse once against my wrist. You are proof that everything he has ever said is a lie. Cale's voice dropped quieter. That is why he wanted you dead on that execution ground. Not because you are a contamination, because you are evidence.
I was silent for a long time.
Why are you telling me this?
Because I want Cassian gone as much as you do.
The Grey Valley has been hiding moon-marked survivors for 3 generations. We have records, witnesses, and we have something else.
He pushed off the wall and took a step closer. The original detention order for your grandmother, the one Silas Thorne signed, it was altered. Someone changed it from detain for questioning to dusting. Cassian's handwriting is on the alteration. I looked at him. You have proof of that.
I have the original document, not a copy, not a fragment. The original.
My hand closed around the edge of the table. What do you want from me?
Nothing yet.
He moved toward the door.
But when the time comes, I will ask you to stand before the council and show them what you are. Not a contamination, a correction. When that day comes, I need you to say yes.
He opened the door.
Think about it.
The door closed. The lock clicked. I sat in the silence and felt the bond mark warming slowly against my skin. Not his anger this time. Something quieter. Something that felt like waiting. The blood moon frenzy. I had only read about it. It came without warning and it took without discrimination. Pure blood, common, it did not matter. When the red moon rose, any wolf could fall. The screaming stopped. Then something heavy hit the door of my room. I stood. The bond mark was burning now, not with Silem's anger, with something else. something wild and directionless. The frenzy was pushing against the bond, trying to find a way in. The door splintered near the lock. I did not think. I walked to the door and pressed my palm flat against it. The bond mark flared. Light bled through the fabric of my sleeve. Pale silver. Cold. The same light that had exploded around me on the execution ground. The sounds on the other side of the door stopped. A body slumped against the wood. Heavy. Then it slid down to the floor. Silence. I opened the door. A guard lay in the corridor. His uniform was torn at the shoulder where his body had begun to shift. Claws had started to push through his fingertips. But he was human again, breathing hard, staring up at the ceiling like he did not understand where he was.
How? What did you do?
I did not answer. Silas stood at the end of the corridor. He was fully shifted, silver-white fur, eyes the color of old ice. He had stopped mid-stride, one massive paw still lifted. He had seen everything. The guard scrambled to his feet and backed away.
He did not look at me. He did not look at Simus.
He fled. Simus shifted back. The transformation was smooth and silent. Decades of control.
He stood in the corridor in his human shape, breathing evenly, watching me. Your wrist.
I looked down. The bond mark was still glowing faintly under my sleeve.
You stopped the frenzy.
His voice was strange. Not accusative. Not cold. Something I had never heard.
You touched him and he came back.
I pulled my sleeve down. It was the bond, not me.
No. The bond does not stop the blood moon. Nothing stops the blood moon.
I met his eyes.
Nothing has ever stopped it.
Then I do not know what I did. He stared at me for a long time. Then he turned and walked away. That night, I heard a sound I had not heard in all the days since the execution ground. Footsteps stopping outside my door. And then nothing. No knock, no lock turning, just someone standing on the other side of the wood. Breathing. I did not open the door, but I stood on my side and listened until the footsteps walked away.
Silas went to the archive vaults alone that same night. He did not tell anyone where he was going. He did not sign the entry log. He picked the lock on the lower vault door with his own hands and descended into the section of the records that was not cataloged.
The section that did not exist. The shelves were dust and rot and old paper. He lit a cold flame and began to search. It took him 2 hours to find the first one. A detention order. His signature at the bottom. Detain for questioning. But above it, in a different hand, the word had been crossed out and replaced. Dusting. The name on the order was not one he recognized. A young male, 16 years old, Gray family. The date was 7 years ago. He kept searching. The second order took an hour. The third took less. By the time the cold flame began to guddle, he had found 6, all the same. His signature, his authorization for detention, Cassian's handwriting changing it to dusting. The 7th order was the one he did not want to find. Ezra Ashfield. He held the paper in his hands and read it 3 times. The original text was still visible under the alteration. Detained for questioning regarding unregistered bloodline variant. His signature was clear and precise. The same signature he had used on 1,000 documents over decades of service. Above it, Cassian's Sharpcroft. Dusting. Immediate. No record. He set the paper down on the table. The door to the archive chamber opened. Lyra stood in the doorway. She was not surprised to see him. She looked at the papers spread across the table, and her face did not change.
I knew you would come here eventually.
She stepped inside and closed the door behind her.
I waited for 2 years. I thought you would come looking on your own. I thought you would want to know what was being done with your name.
I did not know.
I know you did not know.
Her voice was not gentle.
But you also did not ask. You signed. You trusted the system because the system trusted you. And every time Cassian needed a name to put on a dusting order, he used yours because no one would question the signature of Simus Thorne.
He was silent. Lyra reached into her coat and pulled out a folded document.
Old, yellowed at the edges. This is the first one. 7 years ago, a boy named Avon Gray, 16 years old. His crime was being born with eyes that glowed silver in the dark, the same silver as yours.
He took the paper.
I am not showing you this to punish you.
Lyra's voice cracked once, then steadied.
I am showing you because you need to understand what your name has been used to do, and because there is only one person in this keep who has the power to stop it now.
He looked at her. Take me to her. Lyra met his eyes.
She will not see you.
She will. He gathered the papers from the table. All 7 of them. I have something she needs to see.
Lyra met his eyes.
He came to the stone room before dawn. I knew his footsteps now. I had learnt them the way I had learned everything else in this place. By listening. By waiting. By not letting myself hope for a different sound.
He did not speak. He walked to the table and laid 7 documents across it, one by one.
Like he was dealing cards he had already lost with.
I looked at the papers. I did not touch them.
I found them in the lower vaults.
His voice was rough at the edges.
7 orders, all of them. My signature on every one. Detention, questioning, not dusting, never dusting.
He paused.
Cassian altered them, all 7. He used my name to kill people I never knew were condemned.
I looked at the top document, Isura Ashford. The alteration was visible even in the cold light. His signature, Cassian's handwriting over it.
Why are you showing me this?
He was silent for a long time.
I do not know.
His voice dropped.
I do not know what I want you to say. I do not know what I am asking for.
I only know that I could not keep these in the dark anymore.
I reached out and touched the edge of my grandmother's order. The paper was dry and brittle. It had been waiting in the dark for a long time. You want me to tell you it was not your fault?
No.
You want me to tell you I understand?
No.
Then what?
He looked at me. His silver eyes were cracked open in a way I had never seen. Not on the execution ground. Not in the council chamber. Not ever.
I want you to know that I am not asking for your forgiveness.
His voice was barely above a breath.
I am not asking for anything. I am just showing you the truth is yours. What you do with it is yours.
I pulled my hand back from the paper.
Okay. I did not say anything else.
He did not leave. He sat down on the floor across from the table, his back against the stone wall, his hands loose on his knees. The cold light hummed over both of us.
I did not tell him to go. The silence stretched, and for the first time since the blood bond, it did not feel like a cage. It felt like a door that neither of us had closed.
The trial of High Elder Cassian Vane was convened at midday under a grey sky. The Elder Council chamber was full for the first time in living memory. Every seat occupied, every clan represented. The air was thick with the weight of what was about to happen, and no one knew exactly what that would be. Cassian sat in the accused seat. His robes were immaculate. His hands were folded on the table before him. He looked like a man attending a minor administrative hearing, not a man facing the end of everything. Cale Greymouth stood at the center of the chamber floor. He was not a member of the council. He had no right to speak by any traditional measure. But no one had stopped him from walking in. And no one stopped him now.
High Elder Cassian Vane,
Cale's voice carried to every corner of the chamber.
you stand accused of 7 counts of unlawful dusting. 7 lives erased from our histories. 7 names struck from our records by your hand and your hand alone.
Cassian's expression did not change.
These are serious accusations. I assume you have evidence beyond your own convictions?
I do. Cale gestured. Lyra stepped forward from the side chamber. She carried a leather folder. She set it on the presentation table and opened it. 7 documents. The same 7 that had sat on my table before dawn.
These are the original detention orders. Each one bears the signature of Enforcement Commander Silas Thorne. Each one authorizes detention for questioning, nothing more. And each one has been altered. The word detain has been crossed out, the word dusting has been written in its place. The handwriting on every alteration matches one person.
She looked at Cassia.
Yours.
The chamber erupted, voices overlapping, chairs scraping. Cassia raised a hand and the noise subsided slowly.
Handwriting can be imitated. Documents can be forged. Surely you have more than this.
I do, said a new voice, Cassian's deputy. He rose from his seat near the back of the toll chamber. His face was pale and his hands were shaking, but his voice did not waver.
7 years ago, I delivered the first of these orders to the archive vault myself. I saw the alteration. I asked the High Elder about it directly. He told me it was a clerical correction, that the enforcement commander had approved the change verbally. I believed him. I continued to believe him for 7 years.
He paused. I was wrong. Cassian's face went still. Morarius Cole sat down. One by one, other elders rose, other aides, other witnesses. Each one added another thread to the net closing around Cassian. An order they had questioned. A signature they had doubted. A silence they had kept. Because questioning the High Elder meant questioning the entire order of things.
I had not been invited to speak. I was not here as a witness. I was here as evidence. The thing that should not exist. The proof that everything Cassian had built was built on a lie. He found me in the crowd. His eyes met mine across the chamber. I did not look away. I did not give him anything. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even acknowledgement. I just looked at him. And for the first time, something in his face cracked.
The verdict was delivered before sunset. Guilty. 7 counts. 1 for each name he had erased. But the sentence was not execution. Execution would have left a mark, a line through a name, a record that he had existed and been condemned.
The council sentenced him to dusting.
His name would be removed from every official record. His seat on the council would be struck from the rolls as though it had never been filled. His decrees would be reviewed and reversed. His legacy would be erased so completely that future generations would not know he had ever lived. Cassian stood to receive the sentence. His face was grey but composed.
The prisoner will be held until transport to the Grey Valley border station. There he will remain under permanent guard. His name is not to be spoken in these chambers again.
The guards moved to take him.
Wait!
Cassian's voice cut through the chamber. He was not looking at the elders. He was looking at me.
I request a final word. Not before the council.
His jaw tightened.
Before her.
The chamber went quiet. The presiding elder looked at me. I did not move.
Granted. Briefly.
You may have chained my body, but you will never break me. I will see you fall. His voice was low. Not angry. Almost tired.
Your grandmother thought the same thing. When she was carrying that child.
She believed that proving moon-marked blood could reproduce would change everything. She was wrong. The world does not change because one person proves it should.
I looked at him. You killed her because she was proof you could not afford to exist.
Yes.
And you tried to kill me for the same reason.
Yes.
I was quiet for a moment.
What was your grandmother's name?
He blinked. The question landed somewhere he had not prepared for.
What?
Your grandmother. The one who was not moon-marked. The one whose blood you have spent 200 years protecting. What was her name?
He opened his mouth, closed it. The silence stretched.
I do not...
He stopped.
I do not remember.
I nodded. That is what I thought.
I turned and walked toward the chamber doors. The guards moved to take him. He did not resist. Cale fell into step beside me as I reached the corridor. He did not speak. We walked through the winding passes of the council hall until we reached the outer doors. Gray light spilled in from outside.
The transport leaves at dawn. I will be on it.
He will spend the rest of his life at the Grey Valley border station. The wind there never stops. And there is no one to hear you speak your own name.
I looked out at the gray sky. He forgot his grandmother's name. Cale was silent for a moment.
That will haunt him more than the sentence.
I know. I stepped outside. The wind hit my face, cold and clean. I stood there for a long time and let it blow through me.
The bond mark was quiet against my wrist.
One year later, the office at Frostall Keep had not changed. The same cold light hummed overhead. The same chair sat behind the same desk. The same window looked out over the gray mountains. Silas sat in the chair. He was not working. He was looking at his wrist. The bond mark had faded over the months. It was barely visible now, a faint silver line that caught the light only if he turned his arm a certain way. It did not hurt. It had never hurt. It was just there. Always there. He rolled his sleeve back down. The reports sat unread. He would read them later. He always read them later. He did everything later now. There was no urgency to any of it. He stood and walked to the window. Gray light, gray mountains, gray everything. His hand went to his wrist again. He stopped himself, pulled his hand away, stood with his arms at his sides. The bond mark warmed, just for a moment. Just a flicker of heat against his skin. And with it came something else, something that slipped through the crack before he could close himself off. Peace. It was not his. It was hers. Wherever she was, whatever she was doing, she was at peace. Not happy. Not triumphant. Just peaceful. Like still water. Like breath after holding it too long. He pressed his palm flat against his wrist. The warmth faded. The bond went quiet again. He stood at the window for a long time. Then he went back to his desk and opened the first report. His hand did not shake. It had not shaken in months. But it had not stopped feeling the absence either. He did not know if that would ever change.
The new council chamber was smaller than the old one. It had been built in the lower district, away from the high spires of the Elder Hall. The chairs were plain wood. The windows faced east, so the morning light came in. There were no clan signals on the walls. No ancient banners. No weight of centuries pressing down. I sat at the end of the long table. My seat was by the window. The document in front of me was 3 pages long. It had taken 8 months to draft. 8 months of arguments and revisions and compromises that left no one fully satisfied. That was how I knew it would work. The Pureblood Accord Repeal Act. The room was not empty.
Cale sat halfway down the table, arms crossed, watching me with that gray-eyed stillness. Lyra stood by the door.
She had come from Frostend Keep that morning. She had not said why. I had not asked.
A few others. New voices, new faces. The council was different now.
I signed the first page. The pen moved across the paper. My handwriting was steady. I had learned to write in a stone room with a cold light humming over my head. This was easier. I signed the second page. The third page was the final one, the one that carried the weight, the one that said, in formal language that had been argued over for months, that no wolf would ever again be condemned for the blood in their veins. I signed it. I set the pen down. The morning light came through the window and fell across my wrist. The bond mark was still there. Faint. Almost gone. But still there. Still warm if I paid attention. I looked up. Silas stood in the doorway. He was not in uniform. I had not seen him out of uniform since before the execution ground. He looked different without it. Smaller, or maybe just human. He did not step inside. He stood at the threshold and looked at me across the room. Cale glanced between us. Then he stood and walked out without a word. Lyra followed him. The others filtered out until only the two of us remained. He did not move. I did not move. The light from the window stretched across the floor between us.
You signed it.
Yes.
Lima told me you would be here.
I waited.
She did not ask me to come.
He paused.
I came anyway. One year. I have thought about the execution ground every day for 1 year. I have thought about what I said, what you heard, what I did not say.
He stopped.
You heard me. That day, when I said, "Why you?" you heard me.
Yes. He closed his eyes for a moment, opened them.
I do not have an answer. I still do not know why. I do not know why the bond chose you. I do not know why I signed those orders without asking. I do not know anything I thought I knew.
I looked at him. Silas. His breath caught. It was the first time I had said his name. Not Enforcement Commander, not Thorn, Silas. I heard you. I heard everything. The question, the anger, the confusion, all of it. He waited. I have forgotten it now. The words landed soft and final. Like a door closing. Not slammed, just closed and locked from the inside.
He did not argue. He did not ask me to remember. He stood in the doorway with the morning light behind him and let the words settle where they fell.
I know. I know you have.
He turned to go.
Silas.
He stopped. The door is not locked. I picked up the pen again. There was more to sign. There would always be more to sign. The work was not finished. It would not be finished for a long time.
But when I looked up again, he had not left. He stood just inside the room now, not at the table. Not close. Just inside. I looked back down at the papers. The light moved across the page. Outside the window, the gray mountains stood against the sky. They had been there before the council. Before the pure blood laws. Before everything.
They would be there after. I began to write again. And he stayed.